Almost a year ago, I made a video on Mrekk, and in it, I made a lot of claims, like Mrekk would probably get the first 1200 PP score, and that he would eventually become a contender for the #1 spot. This is a pretty brazen claim, because at the time, he'd yet to distinguish himself much outside of his unheard of improvement. And I don't want to say that I told you so, but I definitely wasn't wrong. But before the video starts, a word from our sponsor. Raid Shadow Legends. You've heard of it, and you're probably tired of hearing about it. So let me give you a little bit more depth into Raid. Cause Raid has some crazy boss fights. Like Sylvania, the guardian of the Spirit Keep. Her family used to speak to the spirits on behalf of the queen, but there were these elves and they really didn't like her. And these guys were going around getting rid of people they didn't like. And one day she came home and her family was just gone. Now she's got trust issues. And so you can't get any of the spirit potions you need without taking her out. And that's why her boss battle is all about healing. It's what gives the boss fight its true difficulty, since she can heal up to half of her health in just one turn. This means that you need to strategize and use champions who reduce her healing. The problem is that she can buff herself in a way that blocks these debuffs, which is why you also have to get somebody who can counter that. And then you finally will have a chance. What I really like about Raid is that it looks genuinely fantastic. From the gorgeous attack animations to the detailed environment. It also has an ungodly amount of content. Like if you look through the Google Play reviews, you can see just how many people have been playing for 3+ years and still have not run out of things to enjoy. Lastly, although it starts out simple, the game has a huge amount of depth in its abilities and strategies. And this month, Raid's got a non-stop schedule of special events and activities, including an absolutely jam-packed Halloween lineup towards the end of the month. And if you want a big head start, all you have to do is head over to the description or scan the QR code right here. New players will get the epic hero Chinoru, 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 of the ancient shards so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get into the game. You'll find the rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. Alright, now back to the main event. Mrekk's initial rise is the stuff of legend. It's pretty much the template for a prodigy, when he would go from 100 to 200 PP in just a month, then 200 to 302, then 300 to 402, getting from 100 to 400 PP in just 5 months, maybe the fastest in the history of the game. His skill set at the time was almost exclusively no mod and slow DT, with the few fast DT plays that he had being bogged down by their terrible accuracy. This rise set him on par with White Cat and Vaxe, who before that point had never quite been matched. And almost more significantly, he did it all while being younger than both of them. This made his rise nearly incomparable. Mrekk's potential was essentially unmatched, but shortly after his first 400, he would end up taking a break for almost a year because of computer issues. I don't want to say it, but what if? Beside the point though, because when he came back, it quickly became clear that his potential was still there. Because after seeing how many players were able to get tons of PP from DT farming, he decided to pick it up, and in less than a week, it became clear just how well suited he was for the playstyle, when he got nearly 600 PP on Snow Elation, along with a cacophony of other plays, going from 7k to 1k in a week. This would cause him to get his first OSU report, but it most certainly would not be the last, because his improvement would constantly lend itself to scrutiny, as throughout his entire career, he was able to consistently outmatch every other player to touch the game. The thing that made these DT plays even more absurd was how bad his accuracy still was, with his reading and speed clearly not being on par with his aim. This meant that if he got better at reading, he'd easily be in the 700 PP range. And this would quickly become reality, as within 4 months he was able to get his first 6 and 700, while having less than 50,000 play count. More accusations were made throughout this time, but he was quick to respond and make pretty good live plays. He also ended up streaming many of his best plays, and so from then on out, people struggled to make much of a case against him. His improvement would also just not slow down, and he'd quickly be getting past 8 and even 900 PP. He would quickly become consistent at getting 800 PP scores, with occasional 900s. And shortly after this, it also became clear that while DT had been his strong suit up to this point, 3-mod was going to be the way to level up his plays. This became crystal clear when he got his top play on Black Rover with 3-mod, beating even White Cat on accuracy. The accuracy showed a level of 3-mod comfort that basically hadn't been seen before. And putting this together with his aim potential would let him complete his never-before-seen improvement arc, when 2 years after he was getting 100 PP plays, he would set his first 1000 PP play. This made him easily the player with the lowest play count to achieve this feat. He also choked an SS on an OD10 AR11 map, which is something no other player could even imagine. When this happened, he'd also shown unmatched tenacity to pump out plays that reached the top of 900 PP. And as his skill kept increasing, he was able to get his second 1K, in a way no one could have predicted, when he FC'd Sotarx's Quaver. The top diff on this map is definitely a farm map, but its minute straight of 285 BPM jumps, which become fully cross-map, made people pretty sure the map would never be FC'd. This, along with his previous play, paint a picture of what was to come, because his absurd natural talent had seemed to shine more and more the better he'd gotten. And this was when I made my first video, where I said that Mrekk would get a 1.2k PP play, and also become the first person to contest White Cat. Yeah, I told you so. After his second 1k, Mrekk would play even more, and while he wasn't able to surpass the 1.1k PP mark, over the next 3 months he was able to get consistent at getting plays around 1000 PP. This is a feat few players had pulled off, and over the next 3 months he would not only make it to the number 2 spot, but also gain back a huge amount of White Cat's lead, going from 2000 PP behind to just under 500.
This was also when he would introduce a vital part of his skill set, when he'd begin to put a lot more effort into practicing speed.
Still, it seemed like until he could get past the 1.1k PP mark, he'd have trouble actually reaching the number 1 spot. And when he took a 2-month break right after all of this, it seemed like there was no telling what would happen. But when he came back, he made it very clear how much of his potential he was about to follow through on. This would start with a 1 in a billion 1k, along with 2 far crazier 900s, in the form of Piranha DTFC and an If You Can't Hang DTFC. Both of these scores are positively unmatched. They both show how Mrekk stood out when it came to aim. And shortly after this, he would also S-rank Wizard's Tower. These would bring him even closer to White Cat. But when Steam would really begin to pick up was the month after, when Mrekk would seem to finally find a sweet spot on longer DT aim maps, with Sunglow, Dear Brave, and Stellarium. Most of these were just under 1.1k, and Dear Brave even exceeded it. This is made even more significant when you take into account the PP changes that had stripped White Cat of all of his except for one. He would then exceed the 20,000 PP mark. And after all of this build-up, with over 15,000 viewers, Mrekk would begin playing at the number 2 spot for the last time. Now, in most cases, this would be the highlight of a player's career, but for Mrekk, this was just the start. Because while in the weeks immediately after reaching the number 1 spot, he'd seemed to be satisfied with where he was at, even getting to the point where he said he wouldn't farm anymore, it quickly became clear that he couldn't just let his huge amount of latent potential go to waste. And so he started getting back into the groove, putting 3-mod on basically any map he could think of and showing very impressive results. This almost immediately gave him some of his most impressive plays, like his remote control 3-mod score with just 1 miss. Just look at this, my god. This came along with an Uso no Hibana and Believe Ourselves 1k. But this is all just a preamble to the scores that would truly define Mrekk, starting with his unbelievable 1.2k choke on Sunglow. This score is messed up. It was the first time since Jobab's PP record that someone had even gotten close to 1.2k, and he'd only missed it by 2 PP. Not only that, but it had been with 3-mod on a 3-minute map. It proved Mrekk's reading and consistency with these mods to be far above everybody else's. After this, he was able to choke 1.2k once again on 1 in a billion. These plays both make no sense, but they would also start a curse: Mrekk's inability to get 1.2k. Because while he got exceptionally close to it both times, he would choke on each of the maps. The nerves associated with his feat, along with the inherent preciseness associated with 3-mod, were what made getting it seem almost impossible, even after he got so close. But he was only getting better, because after this he would achieve the unimaginable, his magnum opus of a score, and one that shook the very foundations of what was considered possible: his 3-mod SS on Team Magma. Now, when I said it shook the foundations of playability, I meant it literally. The score was so mind-blowing that after he'd held the number 1 spot for months, he was reported on r/OSU Report, with thousands of people keying into the discussion over his legitimacy. It's a shocking score, a literally unbelievable one. And it also came along with another score, one almost more surprising than the last, when he used the speed that he'd been building for months to set one of the best speed scores in the game, with his FC on Sotarx's United. This was unexpected to say the least, and it probably did not help with his cheating case. This controversy over Mrekk's legitimacy would end up causing action shortly after, when he went on Mikosu to make a proof I'm legit video, where he would do something amazingly stupid: 1.1k in Mikosu. Imagine being that good. This would also be followed by one of the best plays ever made, when he set a score 7 years in the making, getting a United hidden double time FC. It's hard to state the significance of this play, but to put it simply, he'd gotten a 1.1k on a map from 2015, and it completed his speed training and made it no exception to say that he was the best active speed player in the game. This, along with his Black Rover score from the same time, summarized the pure insanity that was Mrekk's raw technical skill. To say it's unmatched doesn't begin to cut it. He's the first of Osu's prodigies to fully come through on his potential, and has given him a lead that I legitimately can't see being matched anytime soon. But throughout all of this, one thing had still eluded him: 1.2k PP. He was clearly capable, and now he just needed the luck to pull it off. And so, he began putting in Sunglow attempts, knowing that it was his best shot. The consistency displayed by the runs he'd put on the map are a show of pure dominance. He was consistently setting 1.1k PP plays on the map, and within a day, he was able to get his first 1.2K. When Whitecat took the title for the longest time at the #1 spot, a lot of people decided that we had reached the top. That maybe someone would reach that level, but that the skill ceiling was approaching. Mrekk came along and pulverized that expectation. We're miles from the peak of physical skill, because players like Mrekk will come along and shatter the realm of possibility. And with Mrekk's insane second win that gave him a 2,500 PP lead over Whitecat of all people, which is a rise so absurd that he was accused of hacking, it's not hard to see why we've never had a player like Mrekk before, the face of OSU to come. And I think that's pretty cool.